The Grand Velour Hotel had 42 rooms, 3 restaurants, 1 rooftop bar, and on the night of October 14th, 1 dead body. Room 27. Do not disturb sign on the door. Curtains drawn. And a man named Gerald Holt slumped over his desk, stone cold, with a glass of wine in his hand and a smile on his face. That last part is what made it strange. Dead men don't smile. Not like that. The police had already sealed the floor. The hotel manager was hyperventilating in the corridor. And the lead detective on the case, a man named Officer Dewan, was standing outside room 27, looking absolutely lost. That is when someone tapped him on the shoulder. She was 22 years old. Dark coat, calm eyes, a small notebook tucked under her left arm, and a cup of black coffee in her right hand, at 11 at night. "You called for help," she said. "I'm here." Officer Dewan looked her up and down. "You're Mysteria?" She didn't answer that. She just stepped under the police tape and walked into the room. Her name was Agent Mysteria, and she had never left a case unsolved. Gerald Holt was 61 years old, retired banker, reportedly worth several million. He had checked into the Grand Velour 4 days ago, alone, under his own name. No attempt to hide. He had ordered the same dinner every evening: grilled salmon, a glass of red wine, and a chocolate dessert. The autopsy would later confirm what Mysteria already suspected the moment she walked in. Poison. But here is what made this case unusual. There was no sign of forced entry. Gerald's door had been locked from the inside, deadbolt engaged, security latch on. The windows shut and latched. The hotel's own surveillance showed that nobody had entered room 27 after Gerald returned at 8:30 that evening. Nobody. So either Gerald Holt had poisoned himself, which made no sense given the smile, the dinner, the normalcy of the evening, or someone had found a way into that room that nobody could explain. Mysteria stood in the center of the room and turned very slowly. 360 degrees. She didn't touch anything. She didn't write anything down yet. She just looked. Officer Dewan stood in the doorway. "Well?" "Shh," she said. "I'm listening." "To what? Nobody's talking." "Exactly," she said. "That's interesting." There were 3 people who had reason to want Gerald Holt dead. First, his business partner of 20 years, a man named Conrad Voss. Conrad was staying in the same hotel, 2 floors up in room 61. The 2 men had been in a legal dispute over company assets for the past 8 months. Conrad stood to inherit a significant share of Gerald's estate if Gerald died before the lawsuit concluded. Second, Gerald's younger sister, Diana Holt. She had flown in from another city just 2 days prior. Gerald had reportedly cut her out of his will 3 years ago, after a family argument nobody would fully explain. Third, a hotel employee, a room service attendant named Patrick, who had delivered Gerald's dinner that evening. Patrick had a prior criminal record, a fraud case 5 years ago, dropped charges. He claimed he had left the tray outside the door as per Gerald's specific request and never entered the room. Mysteria read through the files on all 3. Then she set them down and asked Officer Dewan one question. "Who found the body?" "The hotel manager." Gerald missed his checkout alarm. The front desk called. No answer. They used the master key. "And the deadbolt?" "That's the thing. The master key doesn't override a deadbolt from outside. Someone had to unlock it from inside." Mysteria nodded slowly. "Or," she said, "nobody unlocked it at all." She started with Patrick. He was nervous. That was expected. But Mysteria wasn't watching his eyes. She was watching his hands, specifically his right thumb, which had a faint chemical stain on it, the color of rust. "You delivered the tray at what time?" she asked. 8, maybe 8:10. "And you left it outside the door?" "Yes. Mr. Holt always preferred that. He'd call down when he was ready." "Did he call down?" Patrick hesitated. I think so. Someone did." Mysteria made a small note, moved on. Conrad Voss met her with a lawyer present, which told her something. Innocent people don't bring lawyers to casual conversations. He was polished, practiced, and gave her nothing. But as she stood to leave, she noticed something on the table beside him. A hotel brochure. The corner was torn off. She recognized the paper. She had seen that same torn edge somewhere else. She just needed to remember where. Diana Holt, Gerald's sister, was the only one who cried. Genuinely. The kind of crying that cannot be faked. Red-rimmed eyes, shaking hands. But grief, Mysteria knew, does not equal innocence. And Diana let slip one sentence she clearly hadn't intended to say. He deserved better than that room. Mysteria stopped. "What do you mean, that room?" Diana looked away. "I just mean dying alone in a hotel, that's all." But Mysteria had already written it down. Back in room 27, Mysteria did something nobody expected. She ordered the same dinner Gerald had ordered: grilled salmon, red wine, chocolate dessert. Officer Dewan stared at her. "This is a crime scene." "I know," she said. "I want to see how it arrives." 15 minutes later, a tray appeared outside the door. She examined the wine glass carefully. Not the contents, but the glass itself. The rim, the base, the stem. Then she looked at the dessert, and she stopped. The chocolate had a very faint, almost invisible residue around the inner edge of the cup. Not on the surface, underneath. As if something had been coated on the inside of the cup before the dessert was placed in it. She called the forensics team immediately. Confirmed within the hour. A fast-acting compound. Odorless, tasteless when masked by chocolate. It would have taken effect approximately 90 minutes after consumption. Gerald would have felt nothing unusual. He would have simply grown tired, set down his wine glass, leaned back, and not woken up. The smile? That was the compound. A rare side effect. Involuntary muscle relaxation at the moment of unconsciousness. Gerald Holt hadn't been poisoned by someone in his room. He had been poisoned before the tray ever reached his door. Mysteria called Officer Dewan with 2 words. "It's Patrick." Not because of the stain on his thumb, though that mattered. The rust-colored chemical stain matched the compound found in the dessert cup. Patrick had coated the inside of the cup himself before placing the dessert in it, wearing a glove on his left hand, but forgetting, in his nerves, that his right thumb had briefly touched the residue. But the real proof was the torn hotel brochure beside Conrad Voss. Mysteria had seen that same torn corner pinned to the notice board in the hotel staff room when she passed through it earlier. A phone number was written on it in pencil. The number belonged to a private account traced within hours to Conrad Voss. Conrad had hired Patrick. Patrick had access to the kitchen, to the trays, to every order that left that floor. Conrad had promised him enough money to disappear. Patrick had delivered, literally. Diana was innocent. Her grief was real. The comment about that room was simply guilt. She had ignored Gerald's calls for weeks before he died, and she would carry that. As for the deadbolt, Gerald had locked it himself. Out of habit. He never imagined the danger was already inside his chocolate cup. Conrad, Voss, and Patrick were arrested before midnight. The case was closed in under 14 hours. Officer Dewan found a Mysteria standing at the hotel entrance. Coat on, coffee finished, notebook tucked back under her arm. "How did you know it was the dessert?" he asked. "Why not the wine?" "Gerald had the same wine every night for 4 days," she said. "He was fine. Last night was the first night he ordered the chocolate dessert." Dewan shook his head slowly. "And the smile?" "A reminder," she said, "that the most dangerous things often come in the sweetest packages." She walked out into the night. No fanfare, no ceremony. Somewhere across the city, a file was already waiting on her desk. Case 2 had just begun. Gerald Holt's case would go on to be studied in 3 police training academies as an example of a near-perfect crime, defeated not by technology, not by a confession, but by one agent who noticed that a chocolate cup had been wiped too clean on the inside. Agent Mysteria. Case 1. Closed. What will Case 2 bring? Stay with us and find out.